Well, as I said, after 3 weeks, it's probably useful to do a bit of review. So let's start there. When we were last with the disciples and Jesus, they were on a high mountain somewhere in the upper Galilee area of Judea, and they had come together to witness the Lord in His glory. And this is at the opening verses of chapter 17. We studied the opening section 3 weeks ago, but rather than dive back in without that background, I thought it might be helpful to just reread what we did last week and then go a little further for what we're going to do today. So let's just start in chapter 17, verse 1. I'll read with you down through verse 9 to set the stage for this morning's teaching. In verse 1, we read, 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, and led them up on a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became as white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 tabernacles here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground and were terrified. And Jesus came to them and touched them and said, Get up, do not be afraid. And lifting up their eyes, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, saying, Tell the vision to no one until the Son of Man has risen from the dead. Well, there's where we were. This is a scene that happened 1 week after there was that exchange between Jesus and the disciples, and he had promised that some of these disciples would have an opportunity to see the glory of Jesus' reign before he died. And in the beginning of chapter 17, we see the fulfillment of that promise. He takes Peter, James, and John up a high mountain and gives them this special opportunity to see Jesus in the glory that he will have when the kingdom itself actually arrives. The Bible says he's transfigured, or in Greek, the same word out of that Greek word we get is metamorphosis. He's a completely changed appearance. It's not like he's just Jesus a little brighter. It's a completely new version of Jesus, totally different from what they were used to on earth. It's the kingdom appearance, as I said. And friends, if you see the King in his glory, you have seen the glory of the kingdom. For that is the source of all glory in the kingdom, is Jesus, right? Apart from Jesus, the world is just the world. Put Jesus in it in his glory, and with it comes the kingdom. So as much as you could see the kingdom at that point in history, they did. And in so doing, they were seeing the fulfillment of Jesus' earlier promise. Now, if you remember, that whole promise came as a result of this terse exchange between Jesus and Peter. At the end of chapter 16, Peter had made the unwise choice to rebuke Jesus for his words concerning the fact that he would die, and then Jesus responded by rebuking Peter for his misplaced priorities. What Peter was trying to do, if you remember, was to hold on to the world that he knew, which in this case centered on Jesus living on the earth and guiding them as a group of men. And Jesus, meanwhile, was speaking about things to come in a world that Peter had no clue about, at least not at that point. He was saying, look, I've got to die. In fact, Jesus' death is necessary to bring many sons to glory. But Peter didn't see that, obviously. And the problem was Peter wasn't looking past the world that he was in. And the only way that man, and for that matter the rest of the disciples, were ever going to gain that eternal perspective was if they got a glimpse of what it looked like, of what it meant. You know, we have the Bible, that's our glimpse, if you will, and it's more than enough. But at that point in history, they didn't have the New Testament. So what God gave them through this vision was an opportunity to raise their eyes, to raise their vision from this world to the next. And I will tell you, I think that is the greatest challenge in the Christian walk, period. We talk about our struggles with sin. We talk about our desire to have stronger faith and so on, and obedience and all the rest, yes. But all of those things are the effect of something else. And what is that other thing we must have first? It is to have an eternal perspective. That is the secret. Believe it or not, that is the secret to serving Christ, is to maintain an eternal perspective. Trying to live with that eternal perspective is having an appreciation that this world is passing away and that there is another one to come, and that new one matters a whole lot more than this one. And in effect, I put it this way, it's like trying to live in the next world according to its values and according to its priorities, even as you still exist in this one now. That is the Christian challenge. Now you have an enemy, and you have your flesh, and for that matter, you have the world, all conspiring to stop you from doing that. They are all telling you the opposite of an eternal perspective. And so if you're not focused on the need for this in your walk with Christ, those conspirators will have their effect over time. They will weaken your walk with Christ. They will cause you to begin to think that our chief aim in life is to make this world heaven, rather than to prepare for the one that is coming. And you see it happening all the time. You know, if you spend time on earth trying to make the most of this life, trying to gain the most of what it offers, trying to experience the most of what it offers, doing what the world tells you to do, which is stuff like, you got to have the right house and the right zip code and the right school district, and you've got to have the right job, and you've got to find the right spouse, and you've got to stay healthy, and you've got to get that retirement fund at the level that it needs to be. Those are the things the world tells you to do. And the world tells you need those things because the world doesn't see past today, much less into eternity. And if you listen to that, before you know it, you're living as if this is the only world that matters. In fact, you may be living like this is the only world that exists.